There are $29 billion worth of unfunded capital projects in Toronto. Toronto has the lowest property tax bill in the GTHA. The past two city managers have said what we're doing is unsustainable and we cannot continue to raid the reserves that are being depleted. No one wants their taxes to go up. However, is it irresponsible to not raise property taxes?
So we have this challenge that we face in our city right now, is that we've had some level-headed, sophisticated, smart, tough-minded city managers who've come forward and said, look, what you are doing, the way you're managing your finances is unsustainable. And there has been no response on the political level. Mr. Tory continues to propose this same approach, a status quo approach, even to the point where the previous city manager, after ringing that bell for many months, he said, forget it, I'm out of here, and he left after only 2 years. And that was his #1 message, is that this approach cannot be sustained.
Well, first of all, I can begin by commenting on what the credit rating agencies have said, who are the independent people who come from elsewhere, who lend us money and monitor. They don't lend us the money, but they monitor the credit worthiness of the city, and they've said the city is well managed financially during my time in office. That's their comment. The second thing I would point out is that even with a low tax increase held to the rate of inflation or below, which I've committed to doing for the next 4 years, we have managed each of those years to have a surplus and to make record investments, as we discussed earlier, in the TTC, record investments in student nutrition, record investments in Toronto community housing. And I think if you look, in fact, at some of the progress we've made, we got $9 billion, thanks to good partnerships that I nurtured with the other governments. We got $9 billion to pay for the first phase of the transit plan that I'm determined not to see delayed, as others would do. So we got $9 billion for that. We're going to have substantial sums of money flowing to the City of Toronto that address precisely that list of projects as a result of the National Housing Strategy, which I was a leading advocate on. We got $140 million, or I think it may even been $170 million when it's fully phased in, a year from the provincial government in new money. That was instead of the road tolls that I put forward to precisely answer the question, how are we going to pay for a number of the projects going forward? So we have $170 million in new money coming to help us pay for that is coming from the provincial gas tax, which is as it should be.
I think there's really 3 key opportunities here. The first one is, we know that you cannot support a city of this magnitude and this scale off the property tax base alone, and we need a realignment with other levels of government in terms of the money that's being invested into this city. That's the first thing that has to happen, and we need a campaign to be very clear about the value in the tax dollars being paid out of this city that are not being returned back from other levels of government. It's in the tens of billions of dollars that we're giving to the province that we're not seeing back in reinvestment, as an example. So that's the first step. The second step is that we need to be spending our money on the right thing. We have billion-dollar infrastructure projects that have been demonstrated to add little benefit or little value through a cost-benefit analysis. The Gardiner Expressway. The business case said, tear down that crumbling infrastructure and put a grand boulevard in its place. And we can do that for $500 million less. Torontonians don't want their money thrown out the door. We have to be responsible and transparent and use good data and analytics in our decision making. And then the third is I've approached a progressive approach to property taxes. With respect to my rent-to-own program, having the people who've done the very, very best in our real estate market contributing a little bit more back so that the next generation can access home ownership. It's a progressive tax.
I will tell you now, I will not take especially seniors and young people who are struggling right now to pay all their bills, including one of the biggest bills they pay every year, which is their property tax bill, and say to them, I'm going to send you along a bill for 5 or 6%. That is simply going to make it more difficult for people to afford to live here and to afford to have a home in Toronto. And I won't do that. I think we can get the support from the other governments. We can have a plan that now includes much more capital investment being made in a number of areas, including the TTC and Toronto community housing. And I will continue with those efforts going forward and continue to get the rave reviews from the credit rating agencies who look objectively at our financial management and give us credit for it each time.